Before we begin, I want to mention something I learned from the first upload of this story. Some listeners were confused when time rewound, when the hourglass turned and the world reset. So I rewrote that moment to make it clearer and more meaningful. Tell me in the comments what you think of this new version. I really want to know. Your feedback helps me grow as a writer.
The first day of June, 7 p.m. Johnson High School's graduating class sat in neat rows of folding chairs in front of the portable stage. The night was warm, the kind of soft Arkansas evening that makes a person want to sit outside forever. Parents fanned themselves with programs. Fireflies drifted lazily over the football field. The principal stepped up to the microphone, tapped it twice, and announced the graduation of the class of 61. One by one he called the names. Each student crossed the stage to receive a diploma that changed everything about what came next. Then came the valedictorian's turn. Jonathan Holden, quarterback, student body president, the one everyone said would succeed, the banker's boy. He walked across the stage like he owned it, tall and confident, blonde hair catching the stadium lights. The applause was louder for him than for anyone else. Even the teachers straightened a little when he passed. Jonathan gave a speech about opportunity, ambition, and the bright future waiting just beyond the horizon. People nodded. Mothers dabbed their eyes. Fathers clapped their calloused hands together. It was the kind of speech that made folks believe the world was fair. Down in the fourth row, Earl Maddox listened quietly. He wasn't jealous. That wasn't in his nature. He just knew that boys like Jonathan started life on a different floor than everyone else. Earl's father worked for the county as a trash man. Earl had spent more afternoons riding in that truck than he cared to admit. He knew what people whispered about families like his. Trash breeds trash. Jonathan had said that once. Not loudly, not cruelly, just casually, like it was a fact of nature. Earl never forgot it. But tonight wasn't about old wounds. Tonight was about finishing something. About stepping into whatever came next. When the ceremony ended, the graduates tossed their caps into the air. Laughter rose like smoke. People hugged, cried, took pictures. And that's when it happened. June Mitchell, plain but not ugly, with dark brown hair and sad brown eyes, dropped her diploma. It slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the ground like a wounded bird. Earl bent down to pick it up. Their hands touched. She smiled, shy and grateful. And the rest, as people say, was history. Within a year, Earl and June were married. It wasn't a fancy wedding, just a small ceremony at the Methodist church, with Earl's father wearing his one good shirt and June's mother crying softly into a handkerchief. They didn't have much, but they had each other, and that was enough. Earl took a job at the local tire shop. It was hot, dirty work. The kind that left black smudges on his arms no matter how hard he scrubbed. But he showed up early, stayed late, and learned every part of the trade. In time, the owner made him foreman. Earl ran a crew of 6 men, and they respected him because he never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. After a few years, Earl and June took a chance. They rented a small cinder-block building on the edge of town and opened their own tire shop. June worked the counter, greeting customers with that soft smile of hers, and Earl handled the tools. They hired one man to help, and slowly the business grew. Not rich, not fancy, but steady, honest, enough to raise a family. They had 5 children, each one loud and hungry and full of life. Their house was always cluttered with toys and schoolbooks and the smell of something cooking on the stove. They were happy. Not every day, not every moment, but in the way that matters. Meanwhile, Jonathan Holden entered the university his father had chosen for him, a major, prestigious place with stone buildings and manicured lawns. He carried a 5.0 GPA, played quarterback, and walked across campus like he owned it. Tall, strong, with a smile that made girls giggle behind their hands. He married a beauty queen his sophomore year. She was as polished and perfect as a magazine cover, and together they looked like the kind of couple people put on postcards. But they were both selfish, both proud, both used to getting their way. The marriage lasted 11 months. Jonathan signed the divorce papers with a shrug, already thinking about the next thing. the next woman, the next job, the next rung on the ladder his father had built for him. He left the pen on the table and walked out without shaking anyone's hand. In time, Earl and June's children grew tall and loud and full of their own dreams. Their oldest boy, Thomas, had his father's steady hands and his mother's soft eyes. He joined the army at 18, not because he wanted glory, but because he wanted to serve. Earl tried to talk him out of it, but Thomas only smiled and said, "Dad, I'll be fine." And for a while he was. He rose quickly, became a staff sergeant, earned the respect of the men under him. Earl and June kept every letter he sent, reading them aloud at the dinner table. They were proud, the kind of pride that fills a house like sunlight. There weren't many wars that year. Not many military deaths. The news said things were quiet overseas. But quiet doesn't mean safe. One afternoon, a government sedan pulled into the gravel lot of the tire shop. Earl saw the uniforms through the window and felt his knees go weak. June came out from behind the counter, wiping her hands on her apron, and froze when she saw the men step out of the car. They didn't have to say a word. Thomas came home in a flag-draped coffin. Earl couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The world narrowed to a single point of pain, sharp and endless. He went back to work the next morning. Didn't say a word to anyone. But something in him had shifted and the people around him felt it. He snapped at customers over nothing. Threw a wrench across the shop one afternoon and put a dent in the wall. Came home late smelling like whiskey, which he'd never done before. The younger children learned to read his footsteps on the porch and scatter. One evening, after they were asleep, June sat across from him at the kitchen table. Her eyes were red but her voice was steady. "Earl, I can't protect the children from you and raise them at the same time. I need you to get help. Real help." Earl stared at the table. "If you can't," she said, "then you need to go." He didn't argue, didn't shout. He just nodded, stood up and walked out the door. He didn't take anything with him except the clothes on his back. June opened the shop herself. She hired help. She kept the business alive because she had 4 other children who still needed her. She carried the weight of the family the way she always had, quietly, steadily, without complaint. He didn't know how many weeks had passed before he found himself pushing a mop in the basement of the Halden building, working nights, sleeping days, living in a rented room above a pawn shop. The man who once ran a crew of 6 now scrubbed floors alone. And every night, as he pushed that mop across the marble, he whispered his son's name under his breath, as if saying it might bring him back. Jonathan, on the other hand, never stopped moving. He was the kind of man who mistook motion for progress, noise for success. After college, he slipped into the stock market like a shark into warm water. He had friends in the right places, men who whispered things they shouldn't, men who owed favors to the Halden name. Jonathan listened, invested, and watched the numbers climb. With those profits he bought real estate, whole neighborhoods at a time. He built houses, flipped them, rented them, sold them. Money came in faster than he could spend it, and he spent it fast. He married twice more. Both wives were beautiful, polished, and as self-involved as he was. Neither marriage lasted long. Jonathan treated people like he treated investments, useful until they weren't. One afternoon, on a whim, he bought the bank where his father worked, walked right into the boardroom, signed the papers, and made his father his employee. He thought it was funny. That was the only reason he did it. His father didn't laugh. Jonathan didn't care. He smoked whatever was handed to him, snorted whatever was offered, bought women the way other men bought shoes. He built a yacht the size of a small hotel and docked it in a private marina. He threw parties that lasted days. He bought the police department, not officially but close enough. A donation here, a favor there, a quiet envelope when needed. He lived like a man who believed consequences were for other people. And for a long time they were. But one afternoon, sitting at his desk on the top floor of the Halden building, he caught his reflection in the window. The city lights shimmered behind him, but all he saw was the face of a man who had outrun everything except time. He leaned closer to the glass. When did I get so old? He whispered. That same day, the doctor told him about the pancreatic cancer. A death sentence, Jonathan told himself. 65 years old and dying. He sat in his office long after the staff had gone home, staring at the skyline, feeling the weight of every choice he'd ever made pressing down on him. The yacht, the women, the drugs, the empty marriages, the hollow victories. None of it mattered now. He was alone. And he was afraid. The office door opened quietly. It was Earl Maddox with his janitor cart. "Mr. Holden," Earl said, startled. "I'm sorry, didn't know you were here." Jonathan turned in his chair. For a moment, he didn't recognize the man. The stooped shoulders, the tired eyes, the slow, careful movements. Then he saw his face. "Earl," Jonathan said, waving him in. "Come on in. Please. I'm just sitting here feeling sorry for myself." Earl hesitated, then pushed the cart inside. He didn't look Jonathan in the eye. Not out of fear, but out of habit. Men like him didn't look men like Jonathan in the eye. Jonathan watched him work for a moment. "You ever think about how we got here?" Jonathan asked suddenly. Earl paused, wringing out a mop. "Sir." "Here," Jonathan said, tapping his chest. 65. Alone. Wondering what this was all for. Earl swallowed. "I think about it." Jonathan leaned back in his chair. "You ever wish you could go back? Fix something? Change something?" Earl's hands tightened on the mop handle. He didn't answer. Jonathan nodded slowly. "Yeah, me too." For a moment, the room was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. Earl's voice was barely a whisper. "Some things can't be fixed, Mr. Holden." Jonathan didn't answer. His eyes were on the doorway. "Who are you?" he said, his voice thin, almost childlike. Earl turned. A young woman stood there, no older than 18, wearing a simple white dress that brushed her knees. Her dark brown hair fell loose around her shoulders. Her eyes were soft, sad, and impossibly familiar. She didn't speak. Earl straightened slowly, as if rising from a dream. He took one step toward her. "June," he breathed. She didn't answer. But she didn't look away. Jonathan swallowed hard. "What do you want?" She lifted her hand. In it was an hourglass. Silver, delicate, glowing faintly as if lit from within. The sand inside shimmered like powdered gold, drifting upward instead of down. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was quiet and steady. "You want another chance?" Earl looked at Jonathan. Jonathan shook his head, confused. "What? You both think you failed?" she asked. "I know I failed," Earl whispered. She stepped closer, the hourglass catching the office light. "You have to accept," she said, "for this to work." Jonathan's voice cracked. "What to work?" She tilted her head, studying him with sad brown eyes. "You do want to live," she said softly. "Yes." Jonathan opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Earl's hands trembled at his sides. The hourglass glowed brighter. June stepped between them, holding the hourglass out like an offering. "Time listens," she said. "But only when your heart is honest." Jonathan stared at the golden sand swirling upward. Earl stared at June's face, unchanged by 47 years. And the room held its breath. "Yes," Jonathan said. "I want to live." Earl shook his head, tears gathering in his eyes. "Yes," he whispered. "Yes." June turned the hourglass. The golden sand surged upward. The office dissolved. The world folded in on itself like a page turning. The first day of June, 7 p.m. Johnson High School's graduating class sat in neat rows of folding chairs. It felt like déjà vu. The same night, the same lights, the same fireflies, until one small thing changed. June Mitchell, plain but not ugly, with dark brown hair and sad brown eyes, turned left. She walked straight into Jonathan Holden's chest. Jonathan grinned. "You really should look before you walk," he said. She giggled. And in that tiny accidental collision, The universe rewrote itself. "Here," Jonathan said, steadying her by the elbow. "Sit with me." June hesitated, then nodded. They found an empty patch of grass near the bleachers, away from the noise and the camera flashes. The stadium lights cast a soft glow over her face, and Jonathan noticed how her eyes seemed to hold both hope and sadness at the same time. They talked until the crowd thinned. About classes, about teachers they liked and teachers they didn't. About the future, hers uncertain, his mapped out like a highway. She laughed at his jokes, not because he was the quarterback or the valedictorian, but because she found him genuinely funny. Startled him. Most girls wanted something from him. Attention, status, a chance to be seen with the banker's boy. It seemed to him that June didn't want anything. She just listened, and talked, and smiled in a way that made him feel real. He didn't know why that mattered so much, but it did. They were still talking when a shadow fell across them. Jonathan looked up. His father stood there, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. "Let's go, son," he said. "It's time to celebrate." Jonathan saw June stiffen beside him. She lowered her eyes, already bracing for judgment. Mr. Halden didn't disappoint. He gave her one quick, dismissive glance, the kind that weighed a person and found them lacking. Jonathan felt heat rise in his chest. But he didn't argue. Not yet. He stood, brushing grass from his gown. June rose too, clutching her diploma. "I'll call you," Jonathan said quickly. She nodded, offering a small smile. He was glad, deeply, unexpectedly glad, that he'd gotten her phone number. She wasn't like the other girls he knew. They were polished, practiced, hollow in ways he couldn't quite name. June wasn't beautiful, not in the way magazines used the word. But she wasn't homely either. She was different, real. And as he followed his father toward the parking lot, Jonathan kept glancing back at her. His father reached back and pulled him forward. Earl walked to the parking lot alone. His father had told him to pick him up in the morning. He worked the night shift at the garbage separator. Couldn't come to the graduation. Couldn't ever get time off. Earl hated the way his father worked so many hours and still never had money. Hated the way exhaustion clung to him like a second skin. Hated the way people looked at him or didn't look at him at all. He promised himself, right there in the gravel lot under the stadium lights, that would never be him. He got a job at a tire shop. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a paycheck. He didn't go to college. No one expected him to, but he spent most of his free time at the library. He read everything he could find about business, real estate, investing, money. He studied until the librarians knew him by name. He spent nothing he didn't have to. Stayed in his father's house. Ate the food his father bought. Drove a 5-year-old car that sipped gasoline like it was holy water. He didn't have friends, only associates. People who could teach him something or sell him something or buy something from him. With the money he saved, he began investing in real estate. Small at first, a single rent house on the edge of town. Then another. Then another. He owned 7 rental homes in 3 years. 100 rental homes in 10 years. He became the man people whispered about. The one who bought up half the county while everyone else was sleeping. The one who never smiled, never wasted time, never let anything or anyone slow him down. Earl Maddox was becoming rich. Very rich. But he was also becoming something else. Loan. Earl bought what was known as the Halden Building. Leveraged other people's money. Signed the papers without ceremony. The real estate agent shook his hand like she was touching royalty, but Earl barely noticed. It was just another acquisition. Another number on a ledger. He used a small office on the top floor, not because he needed it but because it was there. A desk, a chair, a window overlooking the city. He didn't decorate. Didn't hang pictures. Didn't bring in plants or books or anything that suggested a life being lived. He still didn't spend his money. Not unless it would bring a profit. He sat in that office one evening, long after the building had emptied, and wondered if life was worth living at all. The question came quietly, like a draft under a door, but once it was inside, it filled the room. Why did he push himself to earn so much money? At first, it had been to help his father, to lift them both out of the life they'd been handed. But after his father died young, in his 50s, worn down by years of hard labor and harder luck, Earl didn't change anything. He kept working, kept buying, kept climbing. He still lived in his father's old house, still drove an older car, still ate alone at the same kitchen table. Both parents gone. No wife, no children, no one waiting for him, no one to call, no one to miss him. He stared out the window at the city lights, each one a tiny reminder of a life being lived somewhere else. He wondered, not for the first time, why live at all. The room was silent. The kind of silence that presses on a man's chest. The kind of silence that makes him realize how empty his world has become.
Jonathan and June were married within a year. His father told him not to marry her. "She's trash," he said. "She'll ruin your life." Jonathan told his father she was different. Told him he loved her. "If you marry this piece of trash," Mr. Halden said, "you're not my son." And just like that, the boy most likely to succeed was cut off. Jonathan didn't look back. He and June built a life the hard way. 5 children, each one loud and hungry and full of their own dreams. Jonathan was a brilliant man. Everyone had always said so, and he proved it. He started at an insurance company, selling more policies than anyone else in the office. He knew how to use his charm, his smile, his easy confidence. He earned a broker's license and opened his own office. June got her license and matched his productivity. They became a team, the kind of couple people admired, without quite understanding why. They were proudest of their son Timothy. He joined the army, rose quickly from lieutenant to captain. Jonathan bragged about him to anyone who would listen. June kept every letter he sent. Then, out of nowhere, Timothy was killed. Jonathan felt the loss of his son like a physical wound that wouldn't close. A friend offered him something for the pain, just a little cocaine, that's all. Just enough to get through the day. It worked. For a while. He had energy again. Could think again. Could breathe again. But when it wore off, the grief came back doubled, tripled, meaner than before. So he used a little more. Then a little more than that. June noticed the changes before she understood them. He was sharp one hour and hollow the next. Talked too fast, then wouldn't talk at all. The children learned to stay out of his way. When she finally found out what he was doing, she sat down at the kitchen table and didn't speak for a long time. Then she looked up at him. "This isn't grief anymore," she said. "This is a choice." One evening, after the younger children were asleep, she told Jonathan to get help or get out. He left. He moved into a tent in the forest for a while, living off canned beans and sardines. Eventually, he drifted back into town and took a job as a janitor at the Halden building, the same building his father had once ruled like a kingdom. The other janitors teased him. With a name like Halden, they said, "This must be your building." Jonathan laughed with them, but the joke stung. He never told them the truth. He didn't tell anyone anything anymore. Earl reached into his desk drawer and pulled out his 9mm pistol. Cold metal. Heavy. Final. He closed his eyes and lifted it toward his mouth. Just then, the office door opened. It was Jonathan with his janitor's cart. "Mr. Maddox," he said, startled. "I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to diss." He stopped. His eyes widened. "Is that a pistol?" "No," Earl said flatly. "It's my dental implant." Jonathan didn't laugh. Didn't speak. He just stood there, the silence stretching between them like a rope pulled too tight. Then the door behind him opened again. Earl lowered the gun. Jonathan turned. A girl stood in the doorway. White dress. Dark brown hair. Not beautiful, not homely, just June Mitchell as she had been at 18, the night everything first went right and then wrong. She stepped inside, barefoot, calm, holding a silver hourglass filled with golden sand that drifted upward like smoke. Earl's breath caught. Jonathan felt something twist in his chest. She looked at them both with those sad brown eyes. "Was this any better?" she asked. "What?" Jonathan said, his voice thin. Earl stared at her, tears gathering. "I want to go back," he said. "Without leaving you." Jonathan shook his head.
No.
"I want her." June tilted the hourglass, letting the golden sand swirl. "Maybe," she said softly, "you both can make better choices." The room shivered. The lights flickered. The air thickened, as if time itself were holding its breath. The hourglass glowed brighter, and the world began to turn again. The first day of June, 7 p.m. Johnson High School's graduating class sat in neat rows of folding chairs in front of the portable stage. When the ceremony ended, the graduates tossed their caps into the air. Laughter rose like smoke. People hugged, cried, took pictures. Earl bent over to pick up his cap when someone bumped him from behind. He caught himself on his hands and knees and looked around. A young lady with dark brown hair was standing there with her hand over her mouth.
"I am so sorry," she said.
"I was just bending to pick up my cap when I'm sorry." Earl looked at her and smiled. He felt a strange sense of peace, like a man who had finally found his way home after a very long journey. "It's okay," Earl said, accepting her hand to help him up. "Like Jonathan said in his talk, we get to choose. We can be happy or sad. It's up to us." June Mitchell looked into his eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of 100 lifetimes, and she smiled back. "I think I'll choose happy," she whispered. And this time, as the fireflies drifted over the football field, the world didn't need to turn again.
In real life, our choices matter. We don't get an hourglass to flip, no magical do-over waiting for us. All we can do is forgive others, and ask forgiveness for ourselves. So who is the richest person in the room? Maybe it's the one who shows the most love.
Every day begins with choices, little roads we walk alone. Once a step is taken forward, it becomes a stepping stone. We don't get reduced, only choices, only seeds we choose to sow. Every path becomes a lifetime, every step decides where we go. Some roads lift a spirit upward, some will weigh a body down. Wisdom grows from quiet footsteps, folly grows without a sound. We don't get reduced, only choices, only seeds we choose to sow. Every path becomes a lifetime, every step decides where we go. When the harvest finally answers, no one's shocked at what appears. It was planted in the shadows by the choices of our years. Because we all have betimes chosen poorly, every heart has gone astray. So we need to seek forgiveness, and we need to give it away. Some will say, not me, I've chosen wisely. And maybe they have day by day. But even the best among us have stumbled along the way. We don't get redo, only choices, only seeds we choose to sow. But forgiveness heals the failures, and it frees the soul to grow.
Thank you for listening. Please leave a comment and tell me what you think. I truly want to hear your thoughts.
The youngest moved out on a Friday evening, a sound that made my heart skip a beat. We held our hands and watched him leaving, his mama quiet, feeling dark, but holding on.
I told myself he was growing up, not gone. Old bones settling, we walked back in.
But that night the lonely feeling returned.
That long, slow truth,
This is what remains. What remains
when the fear strips everything,
when you're hanging in the dark alone?
what remains when you can't ask for nothing,
When your children grow
away?
what remains? We sat on the couch together, yet apart, the TV blaring far too loud, keeping us alone.
One hand on the feeling,
One foot on the floor,
every step a decision,
every breath unsure.
then something shifted quietly beneath us, a whisper saying it's time to start again.
47 reasons to keep going, and we held on anyway,
The way we always have.
what remains
When the fear strips everything,
when you're hanging in the dark
alone. What remains when you can't ask for nothing,
when your children grow
away? What remains? All the children are grown.
they've scattered far away.
I asked, how did we get this way?
Life moves on,
It always has.
now we have time to find each other.
The way I said it when I first loved you,
The way we've said it every night
to each other.
Now we have grandkids we don't see enough. They're spread out everywhere, living
Their own lives
47, she said.
Harmless, just a number.
I said, yes, I know.
So many very good years,
We stood together,
dancing to no tune at all.
across the living room,
We held each other,
and the house was quiet in a way it hadn't been.
and I thought, this is what it means to make it through